So hi, once again, I'd like to welcome you to Off the Cuffs. Today we have with us one of our finest detectives, Captain Bowman. A lot of times people say, well, what is the purpose of Off the Cuffs? Why does the sheriff's office have a podcast? And before I get into some of the questions that I want to bring to the forefront and speak with Captain Bowman about them, I wanted to basically explain to a lot of our viewers why we have a podcast. I think that the purpose of this is to put information out into the community. It is to give the community and the taxpayer a real look inside of what we do, how we do it, why we do it, and also give them a chance to meet the men and women that serve their community. So today I'm very fortunate enough to have one of our finest team members here, Captain Bowman. Captain Bowman, what I'd like for you to do is just basically tell me how long you've been in law enforcement, how long you've been with the sheriff's office, and what do you do here?
I've been in law enforcement since 1992, so about 26 years.
Wow.
I've been with the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office since 2004. And prior to that, I worked with Stokes County Sheriff's Office and King Police Department, as well as Wake Forest University Police. So I came here in 2004, and 2008 I went into CID as a detective, and through the years I've worked through vice and narcotics and back into CID, and I supervise all the investigators along with the school resource officers and the sex offenders.
So let me ask you a question. So a lot of people ask this question all the time. Why did you go into law enforcement? Why did you choose law enforcement?
Well, it's kind of a funny story because most people say I went in to help people, and, that's a very true statement in a lot of cases. In my particular case, I was in college majoring in medical technology.
Wow.
And I got a couple of speeding tickets. One of those was deserved. One of them I felt like was not. And on top of that, I was on my way to work extra job that I had while I was in school. I went to work in a lab in the mornings, and I got a stoplight violation ticket, which again I felt was wrong. So I decided instead of doing what I was majoring in, I wanted to go in law enforcement, and I wanted to right the wrongs. I didn't want people to be treated or given tickets or arrested for the wrong reasons.
Wow. It's amazing how incidents and experiences and exposures of our lives move us into decisions and move us into profession and move us into other parts of our life. Well, today I was thinking about, so who do you call to talk about this agency? And when I called you, you were on 52 headed back to the office. You had no idea I was going to call you. And one of the things that I try to do is transparency. And by doing that, you get true and raw emotions. When I first came to the office of the sheriff, I went around, I met a lot of people here. And as I was talking with them, I was trying to discern their heart, trying to see what compels them, the compassion. Why do they do this? And I'm going to say this, I probably shouldn't, but I've said a lot of things I shouldn't have said. But one of the things that drew me towards you was you were telling a story about a young lady who had lost her mother in a homicide investigation that this agency was handling. And you had so much compassion about this young lady that some kind of way you became someone that she would call periodically. She would, if she needed someone to talk to. And you've kind of been a guardian angel to her, to the point to where she's a college student now. She is about to graduate. And I was amazed by that. And myself, having met her and talked with her, how she sees you, the light in which she sees you in. And I'm sharing this story because you impacted her life in a positive way. Not that color matters, but she's an African-American young girl. And she looks to you, the conversations that I've had with her. She has thanked me for having people in this agency that care. Once the investigation is done, you just didn't close the book because she was a child at that time. She was a minor. And that doesn't happen every day. And I want people to see that the men and women that serve and protect in law enforcement are not machines. They're not without heart, emotion, and compassion. I've met your family. I've met your wife. I've met your son. You're a father. You are a community leader. Men and women that serve and protect every day, are just ordinary people like myself trying to make a difference in someone else's life. I called you in here because you are the captain over the homicide unit. You come in and your unit investigate the worst of society's deeds. You investigate the worst that a human being could do, killing, molestations, things of that nature. And how long have you been over that unit?
2 years.
2 years. And so you think about that. Just in my time as the sheriff, I know the number of investigations that we had. I know the things that we deal with on a daily basis. Even now as we're sitting here, we have incidents taking place that we're responding and dealing with. How does it affect you as a law enforcement professional? How does it affect you every day coming in, seeing the worst of human beings, the worst of mankind, investigating such issues and tragedies? How does it affect your overview, your outlook on life?
Well, it's probably got a pretty negative impact, to be honest. I've noticed not just in myself, but in fellow officers, especially those that have been doing it for several years, we become very cynical. What most people view as the normal everyday thing. For instance, my sister, who lives out in the country, she's just amazed at the things that go on, and it may be something as simple as a car break-ins in a neighborhood somewhere, and she hears about it. And I tell her all the time that if you just knew the things that go on while you're sleeping, you would not sleep.
Wow.
And we just you put it best right there. We see the worst. People don't call us to their house to say, "Hey, we're having a cookout for our kid's birthday," or "Come by and eat dinner." Those things. They call us at the worst time that they're experiencing.
Wow.
And while we're having those same issues in our life, we missing our kid's birthday or their baseball game or their football game or what have you, or some people going through a divorce, and that's a very stressful and hard time on them, but they still come to work and they still respond to those calls, which is it's a crisis for the people we're dealing with, and we have to put hours aside and still deal with it at the same time. And you become hard, I guess, is maybe a good way to put it. You get to the point where you put yourself on the back burner, you put your things to the side and hopefully deal with them at a later point. Unfortunately, a lot of people aren't able to do that.
That's a very good point you brought up. And you took us down a lane that I think I wasn't going to go down, but it's so clear that it's a lane that we have to address. And that is that we're human beings, and every day we have things going on in our lives.
Absolutely.
As fathers and yet we come and we see, and this phenomenon is taking place every day throughout the country, the men and women that serve and protect in our communities. And the question becomes to me is that how do we survive the job? How do we survive the shield? How do we survive the star? Whatever it is that you carry, the shape or the size of your badge, how do you survive that? Every day you see your guys investigate the worst of human behavior, where the average citizen see that, wow, that really happened, where it's become such an everyday occurrence in most law enforcement professionals that the shock value is gone, because you cannot be or do the job effectively if you become too emotionally attached, or if you get locked in, you miss certain clues, certain investigative things. You have to look at it from an objectivity, from an objective point of view. And I see every day when I walk the halls of the building and I'm out in the community and I see the men and women, I think that no one is asking for the sympathy of the community. That's not what we're here for. We took an oath. We're built for this. But I think at the same time, it's good for the community. It's good for the citizens. It's good for the country to see inside of the men and women that serve and protect every day. I looked at a statistic the other day. I think one of the media outlets was talking about it. Just so I'm not saying I'm promoting a particular outlet, I'll leave the outlet anonymous. They were talking about the high suicide rate among police officers, law enforcement officials. And one of the studies they were talking about is that what they see every day, it affects them. It's like walking into a smoke-filled room. Even though you don't smoke, you come out of the room smelling like smoke. If you go into an atmosphere that's filled with a certain odor or a certain something, you come out with that smell in your clothes. It would be like going into this environment every day, seeing what you see. It has to affect you in some kind of way. It has to affect you. So my question to a man who has been in it as long as you have, you and I have been in it for quite some time, myself 34 years. There are things that I do to strike that balance. I incorporate humor with it sometimes. A lot of times the guys see me in the hallway and they say, Sheriff clowning, he's laughing. I do that because the environment in which we work in and exist in sometimes is so tight. You have to exhale.
Absolutely.
You have to step away. And so some things that I do, I used to love to cycle. I love to ride bicycles, or my bike rather, not bicycles, but I love to read. I love to write, because the world in which we're living in, and rightfully so, they expect a great deal of us. They expect the outcome to always be what they see on an hour version of Law and Order. I said this early in our conversation, with one of our conversations, that of all the systems that we have in our society, whether it's the educational system, our banking system, whether it's our political systems, whether it's our religious system, all the systems that we have in our society, the criminal justice systems in our society, when all those other systems fail, the criminal justice system catches all of that baggage. When a young man fails in school and can't feed his family, when a young man no longer has the guidance or a spiritual connection, when a young man or woman feels that they can no longer go, or something takes them in a direction to where they feel like they want to go against the norm, or they want to be something other than what society wants them to be, and they break the law or they harm someone. It's that criminal justice system that has to come in play to keep and catch, to maintain a balance in what we call law and
Right.
order. And so my question to you is that as a law enforcement official, and you juggle all the things that you juggle, if it's something that you could share that will be helpful to the next man or woman that works in this profession, if you could give them something that would help them. And also, if you could give the public something to give them a bird's eye view of law enforcement, a bird's eye view of what you and I face every day that might change their perspective on what they see, what would it be?
Well, as far as fellow law enforcement, the advice I would give is step back, separate life. This is not life. This career is not life. And I'll elaborate on a personal level if you don't mind for a minute. Throughout my years, I lost a marriage. I went through a divorce. I would go to work 2 hours early and stay 3 hours late on a regular basis. I just loved the job. I blamed my ex-wife for the divorce. She wasn't there for me and all these things. Years and years later, after I've gotten remarried and see the support from that family, from my current wife, I realized that it wasn't my ex-wife. It was me not able to separate life from work. And I've been very fortunate. God's blessed me throughout this, and He's given me the mindset and the ability to figure these things out as I've gone along. So I devote my time with the job when it's needed. When I'm here, I'm here. When it comes out in the middle of the night, I'm here. But I have a separation. I spend time with my family. A disconnect, yes, absolutely. I got kids that play ball all the time, it seems. And so I focus on having a life outside of here. So that's my biggest thing. Well, let me add this. Talk to somebody. Very early in my career, I was on my way to work, and there was a wreck. A couple people killed, including an infant. And at the time, that infant was the exact same age as my second son. And just so happened, I had gone to school with that infant's father. And as I got, the wreck was on my way in, so I was there. And I walked up to him, saw him in the car. He was distraught over his child. I walked around. I saw the child. EMS was performing CPR on him. There were two, 18 months actually. And immediately my mind took me that was my child. It looked, babies look alike. So there they were doing CPR on my child, and I went into a panic mode for a second, and then I realized that I had to be there for my friend who I'd gone to high school with. But even today, all these years later, that still impacts me. And I talk about it to a lot of people. That was probably the saving grace at the time. We had a debriefing with several chaplains and psychologists and stuff, and that helped. But those things never go away. I don't remember everything that I've seen and the strange things, but they still impact me. As far as what I would tell the public is, remember that we're human. Remember that we're there to do good. Especially today, society has with all the social media and ways of communicating immediately, word travels and rumors go from small to huge. So every career, every profession has bad eggs. Law enforcement not exempt from that. We've got some bad people that shouldn't be officers. The the truth of the matter is the officers don't want that either. So we want to get those bad apples out. But just because one person did it doesn't, he's done something that he shouldn't, doesn't mean the rest of us are. And we're here to, again, going back to the cliche, we're here to help people. We really are. That's at the end of the day, that's what makes us go until the next day, is to know that we've changed somebody's life. We've had an impact, a positive impact on somebody's life. The drunk driver that we get off the road, we hope that that's a positive impact for them, that they'll change their ways. But more than that, we look at who we probably saved them from crashing into and hurting. The homicides, it's not about the person that has deceased. There's nothing we can do there. It's about their family.
Wow,
and absolutely, they need closure. They need support. They need to know that somebody cares.
Those are good words. I was sitting here thinking and listening to you when you were talking. I appreciate you sharing that, because there's somebody out there that needed to hear that you need to disconnect from this job. You need to realize that it's a job. You've got to need to and must realize that you got to take care of yourself mentally, as well as your psychological health, your mental health, your physical health. All of these things you got to take care of. Another thing I think that is so important is that people see law enforcement officers one way. They don't realize that they're human beings. And I think with this podcast, what they just witnessed is true transparency. What they just saw was you sharing how you felt, uninterrupted, unadulterated, the true feeling about that. And to me, that's important. I look at my own life and realize how, like you, we've missed birthdays, we've missed holidays serving and protecting. Our children have grown up sometimes without us being present. It has affected how we see life, how we interact with people. But I say this every day, if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would have chosen the same profession.
Same here.
I would have just done some things differently as it relates to my personal life. In other words, disconnecting. In other words, being in the mindfulness of the moment. In other words, the moments that I'm with my family, I'm with my family. The moments that I'm away from this job, I'm mindfully away from this job. And so I think that those are great words of wisdom, good advice that you just gave. I want to thank you for your service that you've given to this community and to the sheriff's office. I want to more importantly thank you for your transparency. When I called you up here, the conversation went in a whole different direction. And that's what I really love about Off the Cuffs, because it's not scripted, it's organic. And when you plant something and you let it grow organically, the final product is without all of the ingredients, is without all of the impurities, is real, pure, true conversation, trying to change atmosphere, help, save, and empower people. And with that, I say thank you. And as always, it's a pleasure to sit here and take a few minutes out of once a week to come and share with the people. So with that in mind, I'll say, as we always say, may God continue to smile upon you, this community, all the professions throughout this country that make us who we are. And thank you.